Okay, then. So, welcome everyone to this presentation today on that Destiny Talk series. And this is really particularly exciting for me because I have a very dear friend, very, very dear friend and brother with me today. And we were in chiropractic school together. And is one of the strongest human being I've ever met. I still talk about him today. I remember a time that I was moving and he single-handedly carried my king-size bed. And I couldn't believe it. And so he is, even though he's a chiropractor, he has also been highly trained in outdoor. He does rock climbing, using his hand to climb what you call it, rocks and all of that. And so he really understands the importance of moving your joints, and then layering that with his journey through chiropractic school. He currently has a practice in New Hampshire, where he's doing amazing work, both with his skill and by the grace of God. Is also a minister of the gospel, and that just his heart is in the healing ministry, ensuring that people are well and they are healed and they are filled with God and with Christ. So I'm happy to have Dr. Alexander DuMars join me as we take a dive into talking about moving the joints, really looking at preventing what we need to do, degenerative issues, and what we need to do to either prevent, and if we're already having issues, to help alleviate the issues. So before we start, for my talks, I always say prayer. So I'm going to go ahead and say a prayer. And I'm just going to pray that God will bless everyone that has come in today, that you will get the answers to help you, whether it's for you or for somebody else, and that your heart will be filled with gladness and joy and with solution, and that Christ will enrich your heart greatly. All this I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So over to you, Dr. DuMars.
Thank you, Dr. Eniabitobi. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you, and greetings, everybody. So the first thing that I want to say is praise to God for just even getting us here so we can have this conversation. When she said that I'm one of the strongest people she ever met, I thought that she was talking about how I resisted her being my friend. I was a mess, and I was quite aggressive when we met each other, but she was always kind-hearted and persistent in bringing the Lord in her world to me. And she's one of the main reasons why I love Jesus as much as I do. So I owe quite a bit of my life and my future to the seeds that she planted in my life. So praise God for that. So what I want to start with is, why is it even important that we're talking about the joints? And what it comes down to for me is that when we're created, now I don't want to, if I'm pulling the veil back and no one knows this, I apologize, but to make a human being, you need a sperm and an egg, right? And so those come together, and I know that's shocking. Those come together, and then the two cells become one cell. And that one cell then becomes everything that is us. And so God designed us so that two would become one, and then one would become total, and we could hold that image of God in our bodies. The very first thing that happens when that cell becomes one is it sits there for a moment, and then it starts to multiply, and it becomes two cells. And then those two cells become 4 cells, and those 4 cells become 8 cells, and more cells. So from the very first moment, we have a blob of cells that develops, and they're just inside mom. But somewhere around 3 days along gestation or the development of the baby, there's actually a literal flash of light. There's a burst of light that happens, and these cells that don't have any purpose, that don't have any direction, and don't have any apparent difference, these cells suddenly start to mutate and change. They call it differentiation. So the reason I'm telling you this is it comes to what we're about to see in the slides that are prepared here, talking about the biomechanics and the balance of the body. It all starts in that blob of cells that God puts his breath, his pneuma in it. He built us out of the soil and he breathed on us. And that breath of life is what gives us our ability to be like him. So when that breath of life starts and these cells start to differentiate and they become different, they come into all sorts of things. Eventually you have eyelashes and you have toenails and you have skin and you have a liver. But the very first thing that's developed is those cells start to get a divot in them, and then that divot starts to stretch. And that stretching eventually becomes the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves that come out. Now, this isn't very elegant, but I'm going to hold something up right here. You have the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves that come out. The very first things that God designed us to have was a communication highway throughout our whole body. Now, we obviously know that, well, we think the brain is where we do our thinking. The brain lights up on image scans when we start to think thoughts, when we start to develop language, when we're moving our body, our joints, or our muscles. As soon as those happen, MRIs can show activity in the brain that tell us that the body's moving. And then that brain is sending signals down into the body, and those signals control every function of the body, whether that's digestion or cleaning our blood, making us breathe deeply, whether it's telling us how deeply we're going to sleep or whether we're going to be awake. It all comes from signals from the brain. The reason this is important is because the brain is connected to every organ, tissue, and gland of our body through nerves. And I'm sure that you all know this, but there are specific nerves in all the joints of the body, which is what I work with as a chiropractor. So if you don't know what chiropractic is, chiropractic, the word means to be the laying on of hands or to do by hand. It's a manual form where we move the body in such a way that we accelerate those nerve signals so that if you have something in your wrist or your neck or your back that's not sending the proper signal up to the brain, we know that since the wrong signal's going there, the wrong signal's also going out to the rest of the body, and eventually you get disease or you get degeneration. You get diseases that we think of right now as just the simple fact of getting old. But it's only a fact because everyone around us has the same experience. But the Lord didn't make us that way. He, in fact, when he told us we're going to live to 120 years in Genesis, he didn't say that we're going to have 120 years, but at 80, our hips are going to start, going to dust. And at 60, our eyes are going to start going. And at 40, we're going to need medications. No, he said 120 years will the life be limited. And that 120 years can be healthy. So Dr. Eniabitobi, if you wouldn't mind starting the slide, we'll start talking about where these joints come into play. So I started with all of that so that we could talk specifically about the joints of the body. Now, I did a search of Nigeria, and Lagos has a couple of chiropractors there, but chiropractic is something that's found more right now in Europe and America. We're all over the world, but that seems to be like the nexus of where chiropractic is. Chiropractic is about 120 years old. It started being developed around the late 1800s. 1895 was supposedly the very first chiropractic adjustment. But after that, what we found is that as it progressed, we learned more and more about how the body works. We can go to that first, the next slide. The joints that I was talking about, the reason they're so important, it's fairly obvious. If anyone's ever thrown their neck out, they woke up in the morning and then they had pain in their neck, and then they're walking around like this. They try to, their friend speaks to them and they have to turn like this. It's not very attractive. And if you're in sales, it's hard to make a sale while you're walking around like this, much less just living. We don't want to be in pain. So the nerves that I'm speaking of, they come out of the neck, they come out of the spine. This is a little picture now, and they come everywhere. But the place that they really focus on are in the joints of the body. When we're standing with proper biomechanics, body mechanics, the proper motions of the body, every motion of the nerve sends signals through those joints up to the brain. The brain learns what's going on in the body, and then the brain sends signals back out. As you can see on this picture here, there's these horizontal lines going over the top of the head, the shoulders, the hips, the pelvis, the hips, and the knees. And then there's a vertical line down the middle. Our bodies were designed to have symmetry and to have balance. And gravity affects all of us. So if gravity is pushing down and our body's in line, our body's going to be structured in such a way that it can hold itself with minimal effort in a proper position. Now we're going to see a slide in a little while that shows positions of seating. I'll tell you, our bodies are much healthier standing than seated. In fact, they call sitting the new smoking, because as we sit, we tend to find comfortable slumped positions that change our biomechanics, change the way that our spine is shaped, impact the nerves, and impact the organs coming out of that. People think that they're sitting, they get knee pain and hip pain, and so they need to get a comfier chair. But more often than not, what they need to do is start moving those knees and hips so that they can get proper signals up to their brain and their brain can manage it. Next slide, please. I'm just going to let you read these as I'm speaking, but we'll talk about each thing as we go. Or do I have control of them? I don't think I do. So our body needs to move, and that's the key. Movement is really life. The reason I went all the way through from the very first cells up to a full human being and talked about how the brain and the spinal cord and then the nerves coming out to the whole body is the start of life, is because it's movement that tells your brain what to do. So often, people find that if they get an injury or they're incapacitated somehow, they've had a car accident or they fell somewhere terribly or something happened and they can't move, whole body systems start shutting down. The way that our bodies move, like it's showing in this slide here, with all of our muscles that move us through, nerve signals or electrical signals from the brain through the body go to the muscles and then they move our body. But what ends up happening if your body is stuck in a position is those nerve signals atrophy, so do the muscles and so does the body response. So for example, if someone is on a feeding tube and it has to be inserted through their stomach, their esophagus and their upper digestive tracts are going to have struggles when they're taken off the tube. They have to work it back up because the muscles have atrophied and gotten tired. Next slide, please. If your arm's in a cast because you broke your wrist, your muscles are going to atrophy and get smaller. You're going to have stiffness in the area because you didn't move it. So when we look at the way our body is designed, you can see on the far left here, our spine has 4 separate curves. Down in the pelvis, at the top of the neck there, we have a backward shaped curve. Mid back, it's a forward shape. Low back and neck are the same sort of backward shaped curves. And then in the pelvis and the sacrum, it forward again. Our bones are designed with the joints to stack on each other and to hold the full weight of our body. And when they're stacked properly, they're sending signals at all times up to the brain, telling the brain everything's working well, it's all good. And then the brain sends signals back out to manage the musculature, the organs, and the functions of the body. Next slide, please. If we get imbalanced, and this artistic rendition, the middle one is a little bit more accurate to where we should be, and then we've got an extreme to either side. If we get out of balance, it strains different aspects of our physiology. Our muscles, our ligaments, our joints, they all have a certain amount of motion that they're supposed to have. And if they are locked in the wrong position, they will stiffen or they'll get extra loose, which isn't very good. Sometimes you see people and they'll like take their head and they'll crack their neck and they'll do it themselves. It makes a lot of noise and it actually feels good for a couple moments. But what ends up happening is they're only making worse disturbances that are already in the system. Oftentimes we'll call them subluxations. It's not the same as a dislocation, but something is out of alignment. It's sending a bad signal to the brain, and then the brain has a hard time managing it. So in the example before, you wake up and your neck's like this. It could be that if you don't get it fixed in 2 or 3 days, the pain has gone away, but you find that you now have a high shoulder, your head's tilted to the side, and you just are kind of this way. After a time, your body gets adapted to this. And then with the adaptation, you just think that this is the normal, the new normal. How often do we see older adults who can't move hardly at all? They think they're pretty healthy, but they're stiff. It's because they've had a disturbance to the body position, and then they haven't introduced proper motion. Over time, it locks down, and then the body doesn't have an ability to unlock it on its own. Next slide, please. So there's a couple of laws in physics that apply to this. So this one here, it says a structure under more stress and strain will wear out faster, like the unbalanced car tires. And we just went through this recently. We bought a vehicle that had, it was a very exciting vehicle for me because it lifted high and it had big mud tires. Here in the United States, we like to drive through dirty things, mud and over rocks and stuff like that. It has no purpose whatsoever, but it's enjoyable. And, we learned very quickly that with 2 young children and me, it was a toy. So I traded it for a much more practical vehicle. But I'll tell you, the reason I'm saying that is because as much as these big tires get us over rocks, they actually were unbalanced and they wore out quickly. So when the vehicle sold, one of the front tires was almost completely bald and one of the back ones looked brand new. That's great, except it makes a lot of noise and you drive sideways. Take that as a comparison to what our body's doing. If we have areas in our spine or in the rest of our body that's wearing out quicker due to an injury or some sort of disturbance, it's going to impact the whole rest of the system. Oftentimes people use phrases like, I've got a bad hip, or I've got a bad shoulder or a bad knee. But more often than not, they have a whole chain of issues going up their whole body. And they happen to have one spot that is sending off the most alarm bells. And so everyone thinks, oh, just fix my knee or just fix my hip. But oftentimes the feet are an issue, the neck's an issue. Are they eating the right foods? Are they well hydrated? All of these come together into a holistic picture of how healthy is this body. There's another law it's called Wolff's Law, and it has to do with physics. So where here is talking about a structure under more stress wears out faster, there's another law that says if we put extra strain in some of the bones of our body, they're going to build more bone trying to manage the strain. So this oftentimes is what people find, and we'll talk about in a minute, in arthritis. If you've got arthritis, and so oftentimes people will see it in their hands or their knuckles, their wrists or their hands will ache, or they'll have arthritis in the spine. Very often, arthritis develops because something is out of alignment, isn't moving properly, and now there's more stress and strain on one part of the body than on the other. Because there's more stress, the bone is going to grow out trying to strengthen that area, but ultimately what it does is it makes even the motion worse. So arthritis, or rather that bone growth, is an intelligent thing that our bodies had. God designed our bodies to be smart, but sometimes they're short-sighted. It's a good idea to have strength in that area, but what's a better idea is to have motion so that we don't have to build out that arthritic response. Next slide, please. Our bodies are continuous. We started from those 2 cells. So it's very easy out here in the world to think, okay, this is my ear, this is my chin, this is my arm. But if we remember that everything about us started from 2 cells and then grew out, we're actually a continuation of that original structure. My toe is not different from my ear. It's only different because it looks different, it's far away. And yes, we have different sorts of cells in our body, but they all came from that same original structure. So when you have feet that should be shaped a certain way and one falls, it's going to tighten up the structure there, and one side, just like it shows in this low back here, you might have a fallen arch that pulls the hip downward and affects the low back, which will affect the neck, and then everything in between has negative compensations. The body is always trying to keep itself balanced. It's intelligent. It's always trying to keep your eyes level, and it's trying to keep your shoulders level and your hips level. But when something gets locked out of place and it gets stuck there, then it throws off everything else. Next slide, please. So when it goes out for a long way, you get hunchback or sway back, things like that. Those are extreme physical examples of what happens when we've got disturbance. Other examples could be things like sciatica pain going down the leg. You get a shocking nerve signal, which very often people think is caused by the low back, and it may be, but so often it's caused by sedentary sitting lifestyle, not moving properly, having too much inflammation in your low back, inflammation throughout your digestive tract, and lack of movement. What a chiropractor does is we find the areas in the body and in the spine that are not moving, and we get them moving. We might do them with a manual adjustment with our hands that sometimes has a popping or clicking sound, or we might use instruments that give a little punch or a little click. But the whole purpose of those is to zap the nerves in your spine to send a signal to your brain. Your brain then knows, this isn't moving, and it sends signals down to start moving it. It's one thing to do exercises. So you can do range of motion with your neck. You can look forward, back, up and down, side to side. And that's important. But if you've got an area of your neck that's not moving properly, then as you do your range of motion, it's simply not going to move properly. So what you need is a chiropractor or someone similar to come in and move that area specifically so that when you do move it, the brain gets proper signaling through the whole spinal column and all the nerves going through there, managing the rest of the body. Next slide, please. This was the slide I was talking about when it comes to sitting. Sitting is the new smoking. So if you're going to be sitting a lot, we need a proper sized chair. We need our bodies to be sitting on them. And honestly, most chairs that I find, I don't even use the back of them if I'm sitting for a long time, because as soon as you start to sit back, your pelvis tilts, your low back slumps, your head comes forward, and then you change the biomechanics of your whole body. If your head starts falling forward, for every inch it falls forward, it adds about 20 pounds worth of stress on the base of your neck. And so people are like, well, I hold my stress in my shoulders. No, you feel your pain in your shoulders. Your stress is held through a whole body that's slumped down into a stressed out position. So what we want is, if you are sitting a lot, to stand often, to move often. I personally like the 20-20-20 rule. This rule is one that I use when it comes to eyesight. So I used to work, before I was a chiropractor, I worked in IT, information technology, and I did computer work and working on servers and networks and things like that. I worked for a hospital. And I'll tell you that the least healthy population I've ever worked with were the staff of this hospital. You would think that they would be examples of health, but more often than not, they're under high stress jobs that require a lot of sitting, looking at screens, and they're eating in a cafeteria under fluorescent lights, and this is where they spend their lives. So that is a stress strain cycle that leads to the body being strained and stressed. And then they put on weight and they feel unhealthy while they're saving lives. So I bring this up because I would be looking at screens a lot in IT. So the 20-20 rule is, every 20 minutes or so, you stand up, look at something 20 feet away, and you look at it for 20 seconds. The reason is because for your eyes, you want to adapt them to changing distances. So if you're always looking at a screen, your eyes are going to get used to just looking at this distance. So if you stand up and you look at something further away, your eyes are working those muscles to look close and far away. The same thing happens when you stand up your body. You start managing the body and moving the body. So often we'll sit down for our job and we won't get up until lunch, or we won't get up until our shift is done. But it's important, even though it takes a few seconds away from our focus, to stand up and move our body to stretch and keep it mobilized. Otherwise, those nerves going down your whole spinal column stop sending proper signals to the brain. If you have nerves that are going out to the stomach, right in here, in the mid-back, right where the hunch of the back is, this is a spot that gains a lot of strain while you're sitting. Now, if you're sitting all the time and this area gets locked down, it's going to affect these nerves that are going to the brain, and it's going to affect the nerves going to the stomach. Very often in chiropractic, when I hear that people have indigestion, acid reflux, stomach issues, they can't keep things down, or they're constantly burping after they're eating, I will ask them, what are they eating? There's certain foods that don't serve the body. But another thing that happens is I ask, what do they do for a living? And if they're sitting, it's very often that in the mid-back, there's a kink that's happened there. And then as a chiropractor, I start moving it, and then the signal gets out to the stomach better, and their acid reflux starts to go away. I don't treat symptoms per se, but I'll tell you, I have a number of clients who come in when their acid reflux is back. They say, oh, doc, I'm out. So then I get them adjusted, I get them back in, and then they go back and their body functions better. Next slide, please.
Now, before we go to the next slide, I just want to add something to what you've just said about sitting. And especially in Nigeria, we need to be very careful of our chairs. And it's not always cheap is better, especially when it comes to things like chairs. I had a bad experience where I bought, it wasn't cheap, it wasn't really cheap, but I bought a chair, and these swilling chairs, and the iron leg down here, one of the sides got broken, and so without realizing it, my chair was bent. And so we saw that picture of being bent, and I was on that chair walking, and I wasn't doing well. I wasn't getting up as often as I should, and I was on that chair walking for months, until one day I had started experiencing the symptoms. Some of you experience it, lying on your side on your bed, and just this hip pain, almost constant, almost hip pain. And I experienced that for a period of time. And then one day I couldn't get up. I was in terrible pain. Why? Because my nerves were, because of that shift and, bending, I had, a nerve impingement. And thank God I knew what to do because, I'm also a chiropractor. And, the pain was so terrible. I was practically walking, lying down. I couldn't sit down. I had butt pain, back pain, but because I knew what to do, I was able to get relief. But I know so many people that are unable to get relief for a long time. And we see a video of a patient that I had and just the joy of being free. So let's be mindful of what Dr. Alex has told us, especially with sitting for most of us that sit. Doctor, you can go on. I just wanted to highlight that.
And so this is exactly what we're talking about. Slumping positions, they affect our body negatively. And if we think of it in fairly shallow detail, specifically, our body will hurt if we do what it's not supposed to do. It's designed to be stacked up and to be strong. In fact, regardless of the type of chair I use, I mostly sit on the edge of the chair with my legs underneath me, and then I'm sitting up straight. So if you were to see my chair back here, I don't know if you can even see it, I've got space between me and I sit straight up like this. Doing that allows my spine to be positioned above my pelvis and my head to be over my shoulders. Whereas if I were to bring myself all the way back in the chair, I'd immediately start slumping forward. Or if I leaned back, I do what this guy's doing in the picture here. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this speaks for itself. We can go to the next slide. So we want to be lifting properly. We want to be moving properly. And what's happening wrong in this picture is that this person's legs are straight, the weight is far away from the body, and then they're just like hefting it up. How often do we just grab a gallon of milk and just kind of throw it across our body or move along, or some big water or something like that? And we don't think about how our body's moving. That might be great when we're 22 and we're fit and our body's elastic and stretchy. We don't have to get stiffer as we get older, but most of the time we do, because it took us until we were 40 before we started learning how to really move in our bodies, or even older. So what we want to do is we want to be aware of our body's positioning and how close things are to us. If we're going to be lifting up something heavy, we should get as close to the body as possible, because that allows all the big muscle groups to work together in order to lift it, instead of holding it far out. And then you've got all these little supportive muscle groups that are trying to do the job, and they can get overstrained. Next one, please. If we've had an injury or an accident, what will happen is they oftentimes establish patterns in our body. And this is where I really specialize. So my specialty in chiropractic is I work with kids, pediatrics. So pregnancy up until about 4 years old is like my prime group, mothers and babies. And you don't think of babies as having car accidents like we have in this, or big falls. Pretty much they just do their thing. But children do fall on average of 6,000 times by the time they're 5 years old. So not only do they get a lot of biomechanical stress, meaning they have a fall injury, but they also could have neurologic stress. And so I talk about the brain and the nerves coming out a lot. Someone may have neck pain, like this person on the left here, because they had a whiplash injury from a car accident. The cars crashed, their head swings forward and back. They had injury to the ligaments and the tendons and the bone structures of their neck. And then it starts signaling out to the nerves that they've got pain signals there, and then they've got neck pain. That's alleviated very well through chiropractic care and the adjustment. But what's amazing is that babies being born also have a similar strain that happened to their neck. And if it's not corrected early, then they already have the patterns of neck strain and injury by the time they're an adult and they have a car accident. So what I would like to do is I'd like to take every baby and very gently find imbalances in their spine and very gently correct them, so that by the time they're older, they don't have that foundational principle of injury starting at young. Now, here in the United States, we let's say we baby our babies, right? Like they're coddled and they're treated a little more gently. I think kids should be brought up a little more in the wild. Dr. K mentioned that I have a background in outdoor education. So I would take teens and youth out into the backcountry and climb rocks and go canoeing or boating, or we'd go camping, and we'd spend time in the rough, in the bush, on the ground, and being uncomfortable with our bodies, but getting through a good experience together. Now, couple that with chiropractic care, and I think that you've got heaven. You want to be able to move your body in new and different ways, and then the adjustments help waken up the system too, so that they can manage injuries. Next slide, please.
Now, I also need to add from the Nigerian perspective here. When I got to the US and I learned about adjusting babies, it reminded me of what my grandmothers used to do with babies. And then when we got modernized and looked at the American ways of babying, and we say, oh, that is harmful, where they will adjust, you actually see them, the older ladies, learning, doing that, adjusting, they will pull the hand, pull the legs. I know there are quite a number of people here who must have seen that, pull the hand, pull the leg, push the spine in, and later on, the modern woman felt, oh my goodness, no, you are harming my baby. And we didn't want that done. But when I got to the US and I was in chiropractic school, I went, oh, wow, this is quite important. And what you talked about allowing our children play out. Children nowadays don't play out. They are informed, they're either in school. A lot of schools don't have playgrounds, and even if they do, it's just one little thing. Children are not turning, roughing it on the floor and jumping and all of that anymore. It's more like my child must have all A's, as much book, as what you call it, many hours as he can spend sitting down studying, the better, so that he can win an award for being the most intelligent kid. And he might be the most intelligent, but his immune system is not strong enough, his body is not strong enough to withstand life. So we even found out that the people that are truly successful in life are not necessarily those that have all A's, are those that are resilient, are those that are toughened. Those are the ones that are truly successful, not just having all A's. So it's time is important to move, and it's move the joints we are talking about, right from, like Dr. Alexandra said, childhood, allowing the joints to move, right from babyhood, when the baby is born. Don't be afraid to move, to get those joints moved. And then the children should be out there playing. When I was growing up, we used to play, the boys will be playing ball, the girls playing 10-10 and all of that. I really don't see children playing anymore. And we need to change that if we are going to have, and doctor, you didn't talk about the movement, as you talk about injuries and all of this, how important movement is to even the immune system. I didn't have any slide on that. And even when you have injuries, if your joints are properly, they are more resilient than those that have never moved the joint. And their response, even in the time of injury.
That's absolutely right. And, one thing that I think about too is society as a whole. America has pushed out itself as the correct, quote unquote, but it's actually pulled down so much of what was intuitively brought up in other cultures. So, like the school system that we have so much anxiety over right now, that we need to get good grades. And I mean, thank goodness right now we're moving into a world where more and more tech companies are less impressed by, the employees' grades and more impressed by what they can do. The whole school system was designed to make workers. Back during the Industrial Revolution of the United States, they changed the entire school system to have a sit in rows for long periods of time and follow directions, so that when the factories needed workers, we could step into that and do it. And we were already trained to follow directions and not think independently. So children who get out and they play and they get dirty, they get exposed to the bugs and the bacteria that's in the soil, their body learns how to fight it properly and how to be more resilient. It also teaches creativity. There's some brilliant things, and we don't have time to go into it a lot right now, but what I love particularly working with young people, but also a lot with older adults who are struggling a little bit with mental health and emotional health, is that when we look at the pathway, that the nerves in the joints, they move up the spine and into the brain, like we talked about before. And they go into a center of the brain that's called the cerebellum. And for many years, we always thought that the cerebellum was specifically for coordinating motion. It's for telling your brain how far your arm is from your body and whether your fingers are bent or straight. It's for coordinating motion of the body. But we actually have recently learned that that's only about 20% of what the cerebellum manages. The other 80% manages all sorts of other functions, and the primary one is it forwards nerves from that part of the brain into the emotional centers of the brain. And so what we found is people who don't move, they tend to be oppressed by more things like depression and anxiety and emotional trauma. They sit in a mental world that's locked in their heads because they're not moving their bodies and strengthening that part. So when you move the joints of the body and you move the whole body, it sends signals through into the emotional centers of the brain. That's why when you start to work out or exercise, you go for a run, you feel like, oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna die. And then you lay down and you hopefully recover. But then after a while, you get up and you're like, oh, I'm feeling good. And then you start to do it more and you start to do it more and you make a habit of it. And now you're getting out and you're walking 2-3 miles or you're running a distance and you're feeling strong and you're mentally healthier. So just like this, when we're laying down and you can see how the knees are bent here and kinked in, the hip is going to have pain because the legs have fallen. And let's go to the next slide too, because I think the next one also has, oh, this is the correct sleeping position. Yeah, exactly. So gravity pushes down on us and this strains us. We don't think about sleeping as movement because it's not a whole lot of movement. But if our joints are moving properly throughout our spine, when we're asleep, our respiration or our breathing moves the ribs, moves the spinal column, it moves your hip and your pelvis. And actually, there's a fluid that coats your brain and coats your entire spinal column. It's called cerebral spinal fluid. And it is pumped with the base of the skull and the hip joints. They move like this while you're sleeping. If you don't have proper movement, then the fluids around your brain can't move toxins and pathogens out of your neural pathways, and you start to get buildups in brain. Then you get lower brain activity, you get lower nerve signaling, you get all sorts of pain things, because really, if you think about it, if I were to cut my hand right now, my hand has no feeling. I would have no idea. The only reason I know that cutting my hand causes pain is because the nerve tells my brain it causes pain. So if you've got toxins all built up in your brain, you can be getting pain signals out in your body without having any issue there. I have a number of people, there's a big condition that people talk about a lot now. It's called fibromyalgia. Essentially what it is you hurt everywhere and no one knows why. And so they call it fibromyalgia. Now they can document it as a certain way. This is what fibro is. But most of the time, and it's mostly women, they hurt everywhere. No one knows why. You've got fibro. But I'll tell you, so often, if we start getting their spine moving like this and they start sleeping better and the spine's no longer rigid, they're not sitting as long, and they're sleeping in a better position. Oh, I would say that on the side laying sleeper here, they should have a pillow between their knees so that the hips can be more balanced. So the fibro person, we start moving their spine, the fluids around their brain start washing out better, and then their pain just starts reducing all over the place in their body. And it's amazing. I really love it. Keep next slide, please. Yeah, stomach sleeping is not a great idea. And there's a lot of us who do it. I did it for many years. And I'll tell you why we end up on our stomach. We end up on our stomach because our spine is torqued and twisted and it's causing pain, and we can't sleep except when we torque and twist it into a better position. And so that's why we fall asleep on our stomach. So what we need to do in that case is we need to get more mobility in the spine, and your body's going to naturally want to sleep more on its back or its side. But most of us who end up in our stomach are there because we've got issues and misalignments in our spine, and our body's just trying to find a good place to go to sleep. So here's encouragement not to sleep on your belly. Next slide, please.
I have a question, Dr. Alexander. Sure. As you talked about this, I thought about babies that, when they sleep face down.
Yep.
So what's the difference between the way babies sleep and then us adults sleeping the same way?
Yeah, so babies are developing early curves in their spine. When we're born in a C shape. Our head is like bent forward and we're in mom like this. And so early development of the baby, they're going to start, one of the very first things they start doing is moving their head, and they're moving themselves back and forth. And they tend to do this, and then they start to do back side to side. While they're doing that, they're increasing neural activity, brain activity, and they're increasing muscle development. So a baby who's on its stomach with its head turned a little bit is actually going to be engaging that what we call secondary spine. So our neck, as we saw in the original picture, has a backwards curve, but when we're born, it has a forward curve. So baby has to work their way over time and repetition, extending themselves to gain that backwards curve. So babies actually will be more comfortable, they'll breathe better, and they can, it allows better what we call sacral-occipital motion. What I was saying is the pelvis and the base of the skull moving like this to move fluid around the spinal cord. So I'm not sure that that's why people put them on their bellies, but that's why babies like to be on their bellies, because when that fluid is moving properly, then they're able to recover and heal better too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And
Okay.
I only have a few minutes left, so we're gonna move this. Let's just say in the last one. Well, this is a good idea actually, because so when we're sleeping, one of my favorite ways to sleep is actually flat on my back with no pillow at all. And what I do is I roll up a towel, I fold it and I roll it so it's about this big around, and then it lays right behind my neck here. And that way I can have a proper curve on my neck, but without the straining of my head forward like this. So someone who needs a pillow like this person on the right, that's someone you absolutely know has bad motion in their neck. If you have to have a bunch of pillows to put you up, you can tell that the neck isn't moving properly. It could also be because of breathing issues. If you can't breathe without your head pushed up, then we've got issues in the respiration and probably the upper back too. Before I go, I'd like to encourage everyone just to do simple exercises for motion, and Dr. K is going to talk about them, I think, a little bit later on. But with range of motion of the neck, it's fairly easy. I call them the yes, no's, and the maybes. So all we do is we're looking slowly downwards, slowly upwards. This is forward motion, as we know. The nose is turning your head right and left. And you could get to the end range of motion and then give it a little extra push if you want to extend it just a little further. And the maybes is tilting your head side to side and bringing your ear to your shoulder like that. The last one that I really like for the neck, and this is one that you can do when you're driving or anytime you're sitting, we call them stoplight exercises when we were in school, is you're looking straight ahead. If you have a few minutes, then what you do is you pretend like there's a ball behind your head that you're pushing into the headrest on the car seat, and you pull your head straight back without tilting. So it's called protraction and retraction, and you move it like that. You might hear little crinkles or noises in your neck. That's a sign that you need to do it more, because if your neck's crinkling or making popping sounds as you're moving around, those are areas that have had a solidification of the joint fluid. So if it's not moving, it's going to make little pop sounds as it goes. So we want to do that. And another thing is we want to move our thoracic cage too. And the way I like to do this is just to slump all the way forward. And then from this slumped position, what we do is, oh yeah, this will be good. From the slumped position, turn your body as far one way as you can with your legs staying forward. So slump, turn all the way, say to your left, and then keep yourself turned to the left as far as you can. And then slowly bring yourself up until you're extended back. And then you're going to turn all the way to the right while keeping your legs sticking forward. And then you're going to slowly come all the way down forward. Yep. And then you'll come back to center. The further you can turn yourself and keep yourself locked like that, the better you're going to get motion improved in your mid back. So yeah, you want to be as slumped forward as you can, lock out, and then come up. And what I like to do is I call it grease in the groove. So you just turn, and then I'll just go up and then down again, and then up and down again. Now, I would say go find yourself a chiropractor, but unless you all are located in Lagos, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of chiropractors nearby. But what you can do on your own is encourage movement in these joints, and you'll actually feel, you might have a little bit of a burning sensation after you did that. It's been a couple days since I did this exercise, and my spine right now feels like it needs more of it. I need to get motion in there. So by repeating those motions, repeating that movement, and then encouraging your body to move not just in what are called planar movements, which is forward back, which is what we tend to do. We get up at the table, we sit down, we put our plate here, we pick it up, we turn. What you want to do very often with lighter weights, don't do this with heavy things, is twisting motions with a little bit of a reach. Twisting with a reach, and doing that in exercise so that you're not always doing a forward back. The more you do one motion, that Wolf's Law, where force goes, bone will grow. If you only do this motion, your body's going to learn to put strength here. But as soon as you have to catch something over here, you're going to injure yourself. So why not practice going over here first and gaining mobility in your body? So I hope I was able to cover a lot of information there. Please let me know. I have a couple moments if anyone has questions.
Yes, I was going to say before he leaves, and I will finish up the remaining part of the slide. If you have questions, this is the time to ask, please, before Dr. Alex goes to meet with his patients. Okay, Remy, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Alexander. Well, thank you for the wonderful insights. Now, my challenge is, as Dr. Kuyinu knows, I have been for me, the perfect example of movement and exercise and fluidity and flexibility. And now everything's gone. I've got osteoarthritis, everything's just gone whack. So I'm the opposite. Someone's always been fit. And for 4 years, I've not been able to be fit. So now I'm trying to climb my way back to fitness, but it's really hard for someone who's, as Dr. Kuyinu knows, I was really, for me, flexible and fit. And now I'm for 4 years stuck in static. I'm trying to find ways to get my mind and my body back into some.
Yeah. So one of the big things about osteoarthritis, particularly now, it would be regional, right? You have it in certain areas of your body. Yeah, your knee. So what I'll tell you, that if you have osteoarthritis in your knee, there's not a genetic predisposition necessarily to have that. What that means is that something in your knee wasn't moving quite as well as you think. And over time, it wore itself a pattern, and then your body developed an inflammation, and it exploded it out. Your body's trying to do something really good for itself. Unfortunately, it ate its knee in the process. So what you're going to be doing is, there's actually some exercises where I really like, okay, so I'll say right off the bat, strengthening osteoarthritic knees. Now, if you're at a place for a knee replacement, then that's really far down the line. If you're just good, praise the Lord. Yeah, so one thing that can be really helpful is if you find a steep hill and you walk backwards up the hill. What happens oftentimes when we have osteoarthritis, especially in the knees, is that we start having changing of our biomechanics to make up for that lack. And then our body moves in a certain way when we're moving forward. But the brain gets kind of tricked when you go backwards, because it goes back to its original thing where it kind of resets the joints and helps them. So to strengthen the knees when you have arthritis in it is go backwards up a hill. Another thing that you can do is standing, and you do it repeatedly. Then you can go down the hill and then you go backwards up again. And you can do it with weight or carry weights to make it even stronger. The other thing that you can do is if you're on, I don't have a camera for my feet, but if you stand on the bottom step of your stairs,
yes,
one foot,
yes.
Yep, and then let's see if I can do this.
Yeah.
Bring it all the way down. Can you see my feet?
No, it's your desk.
Not really.
Oh, I can see it now.
Yeah, what you're gonna do is you stand on your bottom step with one foot out, and then you just do a slight dip with your knee, and you come right back up. You can see that? So it's like you're doing a one-legged mini squat, and you can even do it just flat on the ground. But you're doing that on your knee that you're having issues with, not a full deep squat, because that's probably going to hurt quite a bit. But by doing a little half squat on that one knee and doing it, you're going to strengthen the muscles around the knee, which will help support it in its positioning instead of giving in to the arthritic, like fallout. So those are two things. And Dr. K is going to talk a little bit about some supplements and nutrition too. That's going to be a big thing, especially with arthritis. If you can lower overall systemic inflammation, which is probably something you've been working on. If you can lower, if you can lower your whole system inflammation, it's going to lower it in the knee too. And then your body oftentimes can gain traction, but it takes time and repetition. You're in London, right?
No, I'm just here temporarily. I'm in Lagos. And Dr. Kuyinu is my wonderful doctor. She's saved me. Honestly,
Praise
she
the
has.
Lord.
She's saving me. She's not got there yet. We're working on it.
Awesome.
But yes, thank you very much.
I have 2 more minutes.
Okay, anybody else? He has 2 more minutes quickly. And don't worry, we are going to bring him back because we are going to have a back pain boot camp. moving the joint boot camp, and it's going to be one of our main guests. So online, and if we can, and it's going to come to Nigeria. It's definitely.
That's right.
So anybody else, any question? Yes, really fascinating, Dr. Alex.
Thank you, Dr. Abba.
Watch this again to take this all in. Thank
yes,
you.
I know it's a lot of information. And to tell you the truth, I would love to do one sometime about the neurology too and the emotional connections. I could just go on for days, but that's why I introduced some of it in there. Awesome. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Okay, then.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and if she's still here, my beautiful wife is listening here somewhere as well. She's in there. So she's on the other part of the country, about 600 miles away from me right now. But I love you, darling. I'll see you later. Bye now.
Princess, hi. Yeah. Okay, then. Okay, bye-bye. So let's finish up the slide. And I want to say something as I go on to cover some other things is, and if you don't mind me saying, using, since Remy already talked about it, using this as an example, is the fact that also, apart from, motion is important, but when we overdo it, when we put too much motion, and we are involved in activities that is too much for our joints, then they begin to degenerate. I know people that, and then when we have accidents and we don't deal with them, so maybe you are doing a particular sport and you have an accident on your knee or in a part of that body, and then you just, you just feel, okay, it's okay, and you move on, and you don't really go further to care for it. It might become arthritic. I've had people have, autoimmune arthritic condition as a result of previous injuries. So I want to say to us, don't let us put upon our bodies more than what it can take. We have to treat our bodies nicely. We have to care for it and not be overzealous in their activities. If we run, let us run using a good shoe that absorbs shock, and our knees are not, feeling the pressure of the run or the jump. Whatever we do, let's protect our joints, Then also our weight, when we have, remember what Dr. Alex said, that when we put too much weight on something, then that part of the body will begin to try to compensate. And then you have bone spurs and all of that. So it's important that we take time to lose weight when necessary to save our joints. It's easier to save than to have to go through surgery. So for some of us that have had to do surgery, what we can do is just maintain so that it does not, we keep what we have. And for those of us that have not done surgery, please work hard to take away that weight, and then be kind to your joints. Be kind. Now, I'm going to quickly just finish up, and I'm not going to be reading everything on this slide. I'm going to finish up on talking about kyphosis and then alternate. So Dr. Alex has talked about chiropractic. We are both chiropractors, but in addition, I'm also a mental health professional and also into nutrition. And so we want to, and we know that in Nigeria, we don't have so many, we have very few chiropractors. So we might not have the opportunity to go to see a chiropractor. And then if you do, it's not cheap. You have to pay some good money. So I have also included other things you can do on your own if you are not able to find a chiropractor to adjust you. But when you can, please go and see a chiropractor. You will see a video at the end of this of one of my patients that, and I had low back pain. So kyphosis is a postural condition that is caused by degenerative disease like arthritis and all of that. So you see people bent, and it's common as we age as a result of certain hormones, especially it's common with women. You know, in severe cases, you see it's so severe, people start using walking stick. It's so severe. And, you know, complications can include chronic upper back pain. And then while women and men can develop it, it's very common with women. And why is this so? It's because we have what you call hormones, you know, sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and all of that. And it's very, estrogen in particular is very important in that it helps regulate the way our bodies reabsorb calcium, bones, because our bodies, because bones are living tissues, so our bodies are constantly breaking them down, releasing minerals into the bloodstream and building up new tissues and all of that. And when we age, before menopause, our estrogen is high. It helps keep the balance between how much bone is broken down and how much new ones is created, to have a balance. But as women transition through menopause, the ovaries is not producing as much, and so the bone loss accelerates after menopause. And if you aren't careful, the body will break down old bones much faster than it replaces it, leaving the bones weak and brittle and easily broken. A lot of old people die because of a fall, because their bones are fragile, and when they fall, then there's the likelihood of blood clot that goes to the heart or to the lungs. So it's important, it's vital. We don't have to have brittle bone. Just like he said, aging does not mean everything in our body should break down. You know, I saw a picture of a man who was aging, and as he began to build up his muscles and all of that, his body actually started looking like the body of a 40-year-old, and he was about 80. So aging, it is not like, oh, you know, it has to happen to me. You know, all these things have to happen to me. So what do we do to prevent kyphosis? Good posture. Dr. Alex talks about the exercises, the neck exercises. At the end, I will remove the slide and show you those exercises again. The exercises that we need to be practicing, you know, especially when we are always on our phone and our neck is bent. When our neck is bent, then the next generation, these new children are going to be struggling with kyphosis a lot, because they are initiating an unnatural cough because of constantly being on the phone. You have to reverse it by raising up yourself and doing some of those exercises that Doctor talks about. Maintaining a healthy weight, whatever it costs us. We can, if we have to, we have boot camps that we do. So if you're interested in a weight loss boot camp, let me know, and we will let you know when we have enough people that want to go through the boot camp. We are already in one boot camp right now, the one we call Detox, 10-day Detox boot camp. Some of us are on that boot camp. I am on day 6 right now. Yeah, you know, where we are cleaning out our body. People lose weight. Somebody lost 3 kg during just the 10 days detox, and removing toxin from the body, because toxin are stored in your fat. So when you can release fat, you release toxin. So please then adopt an active lifestyle, a combination of weight-bearing exercises. You can weight bear by carrying bags. You know, don't allow people carry things for you all the time. If you do that, you are going to be losing muscle mass. And when you lose muscle mass, because it's the muscle that holds things in place, muscles, ligaments hold the bones in place. And so when those muscles become weak, everything under becomes out of place and weak. So don't allow everybody, it seems nice, well, in Africa, people are carrying your bag, people are carrying your laptop for you, you know, so you don't use your hand to do anything. No, stop it. You know, from time to time, have some weight bearing, carry things that helps to continue. Weight bearing strengthens your bones. And your muscles are built better. They are stronger when you put weight on them. You're also eating a diet that is rich in calcium and vitamin D. Vitamin D, sunlight is for free. You know, many of us, honestly, I am guilty. We spend so much time indoors because we are working. Get out from time to time, get into the sun, get free vitamin D. But if you know that you are not able to get that, please get the supplement. We have access. If you need, reach out to me. I have, we can order. I have a good source, Asiva, a liquid vitamin C that you use under the tongue, which is easily absorbed. We can help you get that. Your calcium, make sure you take things that are high in calcium. Do you know that eggshell can give you calcium? Now, for iron, for instance, I cook with iron pot. I have one iron pot in my house that I cook with just to ensure that I don't have to always use supplements for everything. So with calcium, you can actually grind eggshell and spread it in your beans and all of that for extra calcium. You know, there's a saying, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. Joint pain can be influenced by your diet, like Dr. Alexander had mentioned to us. Certain foods can cause inflammation. A lot of our Western diet, you know, makes joint pain, make it worse. You know, you have gluten, food high in gluten. So, you know, our flour, our highly processed food, sugar are all inflammatory foods. So you want to counter it. If you have to eat cakes from time to time, you also want to counter it by taking anti-inflammatory foods. And some of them, these are examples. Beans is anti-inflammatory. Eat a lot of beans. Let your diet be more of beans than of rice and flour. Beans, fatty fish, ginger, nuts and seed, broccoli for those that are abroad and can afford it. You know, in Nigeria, that might not be possible, but there are so many other options that have similar things in broccoli. Your onions, beautiful. Leafy greens, vegetables, turmeric, whole grains, fruits are all cabbage. You know, beautiful. Cabbage is a major anti-inflammatory. Garden egg leaves, kale, cauliflower, black mustard. You know, supplements, you know, so we look at beans. And please, I'm not going to be reading everything. We don't have much time anymore. But all kind of beans. Don't limit yourself to one kind. You know, just I was just telling my staff that, you know, we all just eat, and especially in Nigeria, oh, give me honey beans, as if there's no other beans. Variety is the order of the day. Let us not just eat. I'm going to change because I've only been eating honey beans. And it was today I said to myself, why limit yourself to just when you can get so much from varieties? So beans will give you iron, magnesium, potassium, zinc, magnesium, and calcium that helps you maintain. So eat black beans, chickpeas, pinto beans. We are going to be having a back pain boot camp where we are going to actually, you know, try some of these things out. So you will see the flyer very soon. The fatty fish are rich in omega-3. These oils oil your joints and reduces the pain for you. You can get it in supplement form if you are not really getting enough from your sardines, your mackerel, and you know, you can also get the tablet form of it that will be helpful. Broccoli, we've talked about that. Ginger is one of ginger and turmeric with black pepper. You can make a tea of that. You can even make a poultice and put it on those knees, you know, those joints. They are the anti-inflammatory bombs. You know, they really help with inflammation. Nuts, tiger nuts, peanuts, cashew, chia seeds, they contain omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants, which helps lubricate the joints. Lubrication. Remember, in your car, if some ball joints are creaking, you oil it on your door. If the keys are not rolling, you oil it. We do these things with our physical things. It's the same principle. Our body is just like any other machine. So when it's creaky, then maybe you need oil. good oil, today we are not talking about not bad oil, not all those refined vegetable oils. Let's get good oils, peanut oil, olive oil, peanut oil, the palm oil, the one that is the liquid one, not the ones that are the thick ones. When we get those oils, it lubricates and oils our joints. Fruits, you have fruits like pineapple, which contains bromelain, which relieves, bromelain has been shown to relieve joint pain. That comes with rheumatoid arthritis and osteoporosis. I used peppermint. I used essential oil, peppermint, on a client, and it was amazing. It has such a beautiful, effect. Tomatoes, berries, our citrus, vitamin C contains is essential for collagen formation. And collagen is important for joint health. So it's amazing that a lot of our problems might have started as a result of our poor diet. I have people that tells me, oh, I don't like fruits. I don't take fruits. I don't like vegetables. And you can imagine vitamin C is needed for collagen production. So as you age, the amount of collagen production is reduced. No vitamin C. And then what do you have? Joint pain. Garlic and onions, another bomb, another anti-inflammatory bomb that you need in your body. Your leafy greens, vegetables generally, leafy greens are anti-inflammatory. I've talked about turmeric, cabbage, garden. We've looked at all of that. The black mustard, korofo, is called korofo in Yoruba. It reduces congestion generally, whole body anti-inflammation. It helps joint pain and inflammation. When they are chewed, they are converted to sulforaphane, and these have anti-inflammatory properties in the body. You also have herbs that have anti-inflammatory properties: lavender, fenugreek, lemon tree, cherry tree, camphor tree, rosemary, peppermint, pepper, mistletoe. All of these have anti-inflammatory properties. I've said exercise, stretching. When when doctor was talking with Remy, says, do a half squat. That is a stretch. When you stretch, there is a way you are sending signal to your brain, because there are what you call proprioceptive nerves, proprioception in those joints. And so when a stretch allows signal to be sent to your brain to tell your brain that joint, please balance it, correct it. We also have something we do in our clinic called neuro movement, where you train your brain to go back to default in changing your motion. So we call it neuro movement. Remy has gone, you've started the neuro movement, and it's part of trying to get your brain back to, get your joint back to how it was, by allowing your brain to connect with the joint and then moving it back to how it should be. We call that the neuro movement. If you're interested in, learning more about neuro movement, please reach out. Walking, biking, swimming, water activity. I cannot overemphasize on fluid, water, drinking a lot of water. Will also lubricate. Water is a lubricator. Heat and ice therapy. I use this a lot in my clinic. When you have joint pain, heating pad for about 15 minutes will relieve pain, and then you put ice for 10 minutes, reduce inflammation. You do that 3 times. You put the heating pads again for 15 minutes, 10 minutes the cold ice, you ice it, and you do that. Testimonies, it relieves pain. Aromatherapy, I told you about using lavender, rosemary. I use a lot of aromatherapy when I'm working with people. It also relieves pain. I've talked about weight management. an additional 10 pounds of weight can add between 15 and 50 pounds of pressure to your joint. You know, so whatever it will cost us, and it is possible that weight can go off. And you know, I've seen many people, I've been impressed by how people have done it. It's possible, you get motivated, find a group, whatever, just for the health of your joint. It's so important that we try to keep that weight. I work on it every day, you know, because I don't like my weight being in the 70s at all. I want it to be at least, you know, maximum 70. So it's because I want to ensure that my joints are safe. Rest also, you know, when there's an injury, rest. Don't start overusing an injured muscle. We have some videos, Piriformis. Ambila, can you post these videos on the chat so that people can paste it? The videos on the exercise to relieve piriformis. This saved my life. Remember when I said I had the issues with the chair? This saved my life. This exercise, I'm telling you, exercise, because a lot of sitting down compresses our nerves to our muscles in the bum, and we start having pain radiating in the leg and hip pain. And doing this exercise in this video can save someone's life. So please make sure, please, can you paste it? And then these two videos, exercise to relieve sciatica. And then finally, I'm going to share this exercise, this video. That's the final, let me see, I need to go off here to be able to do this escape. Let's see, give me a moment. Okay, I'm going to share this video and we round up. Give me a moment, let me share it. It's just 2 minutes. Why am I having so much? So this was somebody that came with a terrible back pain. I'm telling you, she couldn't walk. They had to carry her, they had to practically carry her.
Back pain, even to the extent up here, pain all over. I can't stand right. I always bend to walk, and this waist, this down waist of mine, very, very painful. Two weeks ago, when I was here, there is a lot of pain at my back side here. I do feel pain very well, but today I'm not feeling any pain. It's just normal. I'm okay. Very, very perfectly okay. So I really thank God for that. Actually, before I can't even bend down to sweep. I do kneel down to sweep, but I'm surprised I'm going this slow. Jesus, that's good. I can't believe it. I really want to thank God, because this is my waist belt. I can't do without it. I walk always with it. But now, I think as I'm going home, I'm not using it anymore. And I believe I will hear this again. In Jesus' name. Thank you. therapy and supplements. That's it. Therapy. In fact, I'm surprised because even myself, I can't believe it. Just therapy. Exercise, calcium, omega-3. That's what I took. I didn't take any of that then. I was told to take a lot of vegetable and exercises, which I did. This is a place to be because I can't believe it. To me, it's a miracle, not just a treatment. It's a miracle that takes place within few hours. I won't say days because it's within that 2 weeks, just within the few days. Few hours that the therapy was done on me that I feel better.
Sometimes I am amazed. As much as because it's not the doctor that does anything. Honestly, it is your body. So I'm always wow. For me, it's always a wow. And that's why I love chiropractic. That's why I spent another 5 years back in school to learn it, because when I saw what, just helping the body. It's not what anybody does. It's when the body is misaligned, being able to focus the body's attention, and that's why they call it the adjustment. Use an instrument, use the hand, but you have to have a detailed knowledge of the body to be able to provide that adjustment. But beyond that, what is even amazing is that when your body is subluxated in a particular area, the nerve going to the organs in that area. So you have people with reproductive health issues, unable to conceive because the nerve in their pelvic area is subluxated because it's been twisted. And so stimulation is not going to their ovaries, it's not going to their uterus. And so they cannot conceive, they cannot keep a baby in the womb. And after chiropractic adjustment, they are able to conceive, they're able to, keep the pregnancy in the womb. So it's amazing. And then you heard what she said. She was taking her supplement. She was doing hot and cold compress after she left, after the day she came, and then she was drinking her water, and she came back holding her waist belt and I'm going without this. So this is interesting. We are going to be having a back pain boot camp. Or pain, looking at, anything to do with the spine pain boot camp, and we're coming up very soon. If you are interested to learn more about, you want to be part of the boot camp, please just on the chat, put in your name and phone number, and we will send you information when we have fixed the time and the date. It's going to be an all-day boot camp where we learn more about hands-on all these things. We are going to invite Dr. What you call it? He will be on a big screen so we can see everything he's doing. He's going to be there working with us, and we are going to talk about food. We are even going to have sample of the food and see how to prepare it. We are going to do exercises. We are going to do everything that can improve our spine health. So spine day, but relieving pain. But beyond relieving pain, even if you don't have to wait until you have a back pain, protecting your back. Just put your name and number on the chat, you have my number, you have our office number. Send your detail you want to know more about being part of the spinal health back pain boot camp. I remember to show you some of the exercises. So we have the neck. Please do this. He has shown us the one on how to move your spine and make sure that you have it and you go around and come back. The one I like doing a lot is this one where you bend forward. You look up to the sky, and you can do this on your table. You look over your shoulder as far as you can. For some people, that's how you know what's going on. Some people can only turn, as I'm describing it, try it now. Some people can only turn this far. you can't really go this far. You can't really look over your shoulders. Try it. So if you know you can't really look over your shoulders, you need to come and see me. Yes. You have somebody, look over your shoulder. If you find that you are turning and you can only get here, then just continue doing this. Continue doing this. And if it's still not moving, schedule a time to come and see me. And then look up as far back, but make sure you are sitting straight. You are not slouching. Look up as far back, and then on the side, like your ear, but don't lift up your shoulder. Just turn to this side, then turn to this side. If you do this regularly, you are going to feel a lot of relief and tension leave your neck area. Another exercise that, it talked about is like if you're in the traffic, you are sitting in the car and you feel like do like you have a ball here, and then push your neck back, forward, back, forward. Because many of us, we are like this because of sitting in front of the computer. Our shoulders are rounded and we are face forward. There are exercises you can do to try to, you're hunched back, you can begin to try to straighten, because it's your brain that helped form it, because you were always like this. So in balancing your body, your brain says, okay, and center of gravity has changed, so she needs to be bent. But you can refeed a new information into your brain by doing the right thing over and over again for a period of time. And your brain begins to, I was more hunched than this. And I found out that my neck was stiffer than this. Sitting down with your spine just lumped up on top of each other is weight. You are putting weight on your spine from your head down, and in just that one motion. And so you have to move it. And the only thing that gets blood and nutrient into your spine is movement. So it's when you move the spine that nutrient and blood and oxygen and everything your spine needs flows into the spine. So movement, say it to yourself, movement is life. I have to move. When you move, the pressure, like you said, the cerebellum is the lower part of the brain, that signals from it feed directly into the emotional center, meaning that when you move, you actually relieve yourself, of a lot of emotional burdens. And that's why people, when you are depressed, you sit down on a couch eating ice cream, you find out that depression doesn't go. I can talk, just like Dr. Alex said, we can keep talking about this all day because it has saved our life. It has helped us. We are all recipients. I am, some people here have been recipients of all of this. And so we can just talk about it. Before we leave, can I have anybody, I like hearing feedback. How has this been? What have you learned? Please, just one or two feedbacks. I love having feedbacks.
Can I give you feedback as always? It was don't put the video. No, we'll put video on. It was very informative and I'm very grateful. It's good stuff to know and reminders of how to do things gently and not getting their way. But it's very informative. The dietary stuff is informative. The basic exercises are very informative. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Remy. I look forward to seeing you back.
Very soon. Don't worry. I'm back to being fixed. Everybody, Dr. Kuyinu is amazing. I'm her biggest fan. Just let you know.
Share. Oh yeah, I will share. Somebody said, thank you so much. And it was such an amazing and informative session. Thank you. Dr.
Eniabitobi was a wonderful session. Very, very practical. And as I just keep saying, that's why I keep saying, please don't forget to share the recording because there's so much information and a lot to take in all at once. So I would like to go over it and just slowly, learn again. I know you've talked with me before and dealt with me before, but It's very, very informative. So I like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abba. You are always greatly appreciated. I will forever remember your contribution in my life.
I found it my name is Moronke Williams. I found it very informative. I had issues with my neck, and so I could identify with the lady that gave testimony. And I actually had to visit a when I was abroad. I visited a chiropractor, and it's amazing. And he showed me, he did a kind of like an X-ray of where my spine was and all the different, without me taking off my clothes. You know, well, what I mean is that you don't always have to take off clothes. But anyway, I just saw everything, and it was like, what? All the red marks. And so he pointed these things out, and he gave me the exercises to do. And I found it very good, just what you had said. So it was the same thing. But then when I came back, I looked for a chiropractor, and I found somebody online. And for the first session was great. And the second session, it's supposed to be an hour, and all of 15 minutes is what I had. I got into the car and realized that, hey, I only did 15 minutes and I was still charged, so I didn't go back. But I can say that wasn't a very good experience, but I can say that the exercises are wonderful. I do them, whenever I remember. And a couple of days ago, I had a serious, like it all came back. I was walking down some steps, and I just felt, this gripping pain at the same, like the shoulder, neck area. And I was really scared. So I was walking down, so I had to go really slowly. And when I got into the car, I started doing those exercises because I was like stiff, I couldn't turn, I couldn't move. Yeah. So when I sat in the car, I did the exercises, I had all the things that you did, and it went, and I've not had any issues since. But I'm really interested in what thank you very much for the talk. Thank you.
See testimonies here that to show you this works. So please, if the only thing you can do is just those next exercises, if that's the only thing you got from this session and you apply it regularly, you would have improved and your lifespan, I can tell you. Then, well, thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing you, and hopefully, yes, movement is life. Never tired of learning from you. Okay. Yes. Remember that slogan, movement is life. I keep saying it to myself, because yes, it is. That's why we have so many bones. And the number of doctors, the number of bones and joints we have in our bodies. Even is movement that stimulates our brain. Movement increases intelligence. That's why stopping our children from playing football, from playing out there, not just football, don't mind me, I'm not just, but from really engaging in activities that moves their bodies is not going to help intelligence in the way the fullness, not just, being able to pass a math exam, but the fullness of what we call intelligence. So I look forward to those that will join me later on in the boot camp. I'm excited about it. And I will see you at some point soon. We'll bring Dr. Alexander back again to talk more about what chiropractic and all of that stuff. Bye-bye.